Helps if you can spell right. Alright, I'll switch to screen record. Alright. I hope this is recording audio. Guess we'll find out the hard way. So I have the basic file in here as it comes with just an idle speed. So I'm going to go down through the list and set it up very basically just to get my truck fired up, a starting point. I'm going to start by taking the air away here because I'm not using any kind of fans and I don't need it to raise the idle up for any kind of fan. Stock, one wideband, magnetic. Sensors, there won't be anything in there you need to change. It's all stock, especially on this killshot. Alright, is there anything in here I need to change? Fan on, add air, no. Okay. I don't think there's anything in there I need to change. Target speed, I can lower those values a little bit, so I'm going to grab the whole thing. I don't need it to be revving quite that high. And down here we're going to do a little bit smoother of a transition. Wait, was it 750 or so? I don't even remember what the idle speed is set to now. Better make sure. It's best to try to match them. Yeah, 7 1/4. Okay. Alright. Okay. The park air. This is how much air is introduced when you first crank the engine. So if it's acting like it needs fuel, you can lower this value a little. If it's acting like it wants some air, like if you just lightly crack the throttle and it starts better, you can raise this value. It's based on temperature of the coolant. So I've found that I like to smooth it out just a little bit and then lower it just a couple points, just about like that. For pretty much stock engine, that's all it really wants. And get into the spark here. If you have an HEI or you're not using ACEs to control your timing, you can just skip this part. But these three values here, idle, cruise, and wide open throttle, it uses this when it's set to simple. If you have it set to 2D, it uses these tables. So I'm going to use 2D so I can just ignore this. But static timing, 15, yes, that's where my distributor is placed and confirmed. Timing offset is 0 because it's spot on the money. I like to start with 0. I don't need it pulling anything more than 0 degrees out of it. This engine really doesn't want anything more than 31 degrees, so I'm going to put a maximum cap at 31. And right here is where you would select your simple, those three values, or the 2D table. So I'm going to select 2D. Now X point, I'm going to put my ignition RPM. This is for these tables down here, mostly this one. It puts it into relative terms because I'm not turning a big block Chevy 8,000 RPM. So I'm going to run down this list and I'm going to give myself a little bit of, I'm going to do 850, a little bit of room here. Spread it out some. This keyboard sucks. Typically like to leave yourself a little headroom on all your tables. So even though 4,500 is the absolute maximum I will ever spin it, 5,000 is a good stopping point for my tables. 1D table, RPM, fast adjust. Now this is the computer's ability to pull timing if the idle's too fast, or add timing if the idle's too slow. Typically on a stock deal, you can just set them all to 0. I mean, you can start adding a little here and there if your timing doesn't act like you want it to, you know, your idle speed and timing. Let me try to re-explain that. If your idle speed isn't cooperating, if it's lingering or if it's falling too low, you can use this table to add timing, you know, to correct for a lower idle speed, or to pull timing to correct for a high idle speed. But just set it to 0 unless you have some crazy hot rod. You don't need to worry about that. None of this stuff really matters. I mean, it just bumps the idle speed up a little over your base table. You know, based on coolant temp. It'll add a little timing, makes it burn a little more efficient when it's cold. It's pretty much fine. I'm terrible at explaining stuff, so deal with it. So I'm going to grab this. This is your MBT timing. This is max brake torque. I believe that's what that stands for. So the maximum value it will receive in any of these areas. So I'm going to put 18. Oops, I got to highlight the whole area. I'm going to put 18 down here in my idle range. I'm going to grab the high vacuum area. Crap, right in here. I'm going to put 31 because that's my maximum. And then you're always going to want a little more timing and a little less up here. A little less wide open throttle and a little more for cruising. That's just kind of how it works. So I'm going to do the same thing up here. Pretty much, I mean, you have to know your starting point for timing to fill this table. So I'm going to tell you mine's 27, but every engine's different. So any more than 27, this thing will ping. So we'll keep her happy. Down here, I'll put 19. And then I'm going to fill this stuff in, let it interpolate a little bit. Yeah, something like that. It's a little bit of an aggressive step up from 750 to 850, I won't lie, but I'll smooth that out later. I think it'll be just dandy. You know, I'll just do it now. Go ahead and cheat a little. There. That's fine. It's a good starting point anyway. Every engine's different, so make sure you have an idea what you want. If you're not sure, then just drive it on the base setting and see. Listen carefully. Listen for pinging, anything like that. Startup base timing, these are the values that it comes with. Startup would be the timing it has while you're cranking and when it first starts. This is going to be a little aggressive, so I'm just going to start over here. When it's cold, you'll typically want a little bit more timing than you do when it's hot. So I find that with RPM, it doesn't really matter on this table too much. So I'm just going to grab this bottom row and I'm going to, why does that, the key don't work? All right, I will type it in manually. I will put it to about 16 degrees. And then up at the top, when it's real hot, I'm going to put it about 13 degrees, just so it'll crank easy. And somewhere in here, like above freezing, it really doesn't need to change a whole lot. So probably, honestly, this whole area can just be 16, and that'll be just fine. All I'm going to do is fill the column values again. It'll smooth that out for me. When you first start it, when you're cranking, it'll be here. Then when it fires, it'll go over here. Unless you need more timing to help it get going after the initial crank, you can add more in here. But otherwise, you can just set this table straight across just like that. Same thing with your idle base timing. You can start with whatever you want it to idle at. If you're not sure, you can lock your timing up here. You can lock it to 15 degrees and see how it idles. You can then set your static timing to you know, 12 or 18 and see what it likes, you know. I mean, you don't really know until you know. So this one wants about 16, 17, so I'm just going to say 16 on this low side. Come on, keyboard. There you go. And then up here in the higher load cells, you know, higher RPM, higher load up in here, I'm going to bump into my main table to make the transition smoother. So I'm going to grab this upper corner, something like that. And I'm going to put it about the same values as this table was, which was roughly 19 in that area. And we're going to smooth this out a little bit. I'm going to pull this over just a little. Something like that. It'll still idle in this ballpark, but it'll be flirting with the table as the idle increases. The idle speed as it transitions from MBT, or from idle to maximum. Actually, I overshot as 18, not 19. Let me correct that. I'll just start it over again so you can see me do that again. How about that? Maybe we'll go 16. Now grab the top corner. 18 was the value. And pull it over. Well, I guess last time I did it down. Didn't really matter. Not in this particular instance. Okay. I'm going to pull this guy over. A couple more. Something like that. I mean, it's a good starting point. You can dial in whatever you think you might need. Towards the upper end to 800 and the lower end to 700. It's going to idle right in between. So I'm going to take this number and I'm going to bump it up just a tickle. Just to get that transition a little bit better. And your follow base timing. So when you start the engine, it starts here. And as it transitions to idle, it hits this table. Then the minute you touch the gas pedal, it switches to this table. And then when you let off the gas pedal, it goes to this table. And it will fall back down to the idle table. So the way this is set up is pretty far off from how I would like it. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to grab part of this table. I'm going to throw it in here like that. And then I'm going to lower it. And I've learned that it doesn't really like to be any lower than your idle base timing. It can be a little, but if it's too low, it'll make the idle dip pretty aggressively. So I like to try to match it. But as long as these values are less than your maximum, you're all right. A couple points. It's a little higher than I'd like at the upper end, so I'm going to drop that down just a little. I think I overshot that one shot. There we go. That was better. Yeah, something like that. You can nitpick, but there's plenty of time for tuning. This is just to get started up, get it fired up the first time. All right, there is a setting. Let me see if I can find it here. Advanced coefficient. This value here is the speed at which it changes between these tables. And I need to confirm, but I'm pretty sure you put this at a higher value, it will switch faster. And at a lower value, it will switch slower. So if you've got a problem where it's not transitioning quick enough or too quick, you can play with this setting and get it just right. Maximum RPM, that definitely needs to be put at a normal level. That reminds me. Oh, look at that. It matched me. Cool. All right, next on down the line is fuel. Our fuel table offset comes to 90. And again, this works like the timing. These three values take effect when you use the simple function of AFR. If you use 2D, it will run off of a table. So I'm going to ignore this for now, and I will set up a table anyway. These two values right here, fuel power on percent. When you turn the key on, when you key it on before you even crank it, it'll tap the injectors and give you a little shot of fuel. So if you have a problem where every time you key it on, it seems like it's just flooding itself out, you need to lower this value. I've seen on the fusion systems, they really like to be like 65%. The killshot and killshot classic, it seems like where it comes out of the box is fine. Sometimes you can add a little as well. Fuel prime percent is the amount of extra table, or the amount of extra fuel over your base table when you first start it, like immediately. That goes away pretty fast. That would be your after start decay cycle. Anyway, you can pretty much leave that alone. It's really no reason to mess with it. These two values are, how do I explain that basically? The sensitivity of the transitioning fuel. So the higher this value, the more sensitive it is to use that transitioning fuel. What is transitioning fuel? It's when you crack the throttle quickly, it needs extra fuel to overcome that spike of air. So that's what these are for. It's a sensitivity for that fuel. Your fuel adjustment for those two are in the 1D. Acceleration correction versus TPS. This is like, how can I say that in a basic term that anybody would understand? It's like the pumper on your carburetor, or like the squirter size on your Holly. It's not quite what it is. This is sort of like the squirter size and the cam on a Holly. The, pump shot cam, if you will. It's not quite what it is, but it's close. Think of it like a squirter or a pump shot or something like that. It's best to not even fiddle with this stuff until you get your table kind of close. Yes, it'll probably hesitate if you crack the throttle. It's best to not do that. Just drive it smooth transitioning on and off the throttle and get you some data first before you even start using these modifiers. Any of these modifiers use fuel over your base table. So if you're using extra here to make it drivable, like way too much, then your table's probably too far off. So only fiddle with these once you get your base correct. Now I will say that for drivability purposes, just to get yourself going and out of the hole, it's always going to have a pretty aggressive stumble. And I know that can make it tricky if you're trying to drive in traffic and you don't have a dyno. So just take this value and put it at like 250. I know that seems aggressive, and it is. Just do it for now. It won't play with your learning capabilities too badly. Just set it there so you can actually take off in traffic and not be a nuisance. Alright, we've talked about the acceleration enrich. These, this is just the same kind of thing, but based on coolant temp instead of throttle position. Same thing here, coolant temp based on map. And then these are the decay rates, how quickly it goes away versus temperature, engine temperature. Your wide open throttle TPS threshold is where in this RPM scale it will hit the wide open throttle activation. So at 300, I don't know why it comes set like this. This seems wrong to me, but at 300 RPMs, it takes 49.1 degrees of throttle input to activate the wide open throttle threshold. And I'm fairly confident this wide open throttle, this table here, is only relevant to wide open throttle and rich. I think. Don't quote me on that, but that's my guess. Anyway, 2D table. Cranking fuel. I typically want a little bit more up in the RPMs just because my engine spins a little faster than that. So I'll bump that up probably in there, and then kind of smooth that out a little bit. Just a little bit more there. After start enrichment, it's pretty cold around here, so I'm going to take this whole thing probably down there, and I'm going to add, we'll say 115, and then from 68 degrees to 115, actually 68 degrees to -4, I will fill those values to ease it back off. Really, it doesn't need anything extra past 50. I mean, it's fine after that. The stock BE, so now you can see the RPM scale is way off again, so we'll go back to RPM Y point, and I will go through and change this up a little bit. Go up in 500s. Oops. Screwed that one up, didn't I? Okay, where do we go? 3,000. Same deal. Leave yourself some headroom on the top end. I just like to have extra down here. I mean, it's a big block, so really it's going to be operating down here. So I have to leave myself some wiggle room. AFR RPM is going to be about the same thing. So I need to about copy that. Whoa, that was a weird lag, but okay. Startup RPM, that's fine. That's way more than I'll ever use, but that's fine. Learn RPM. So this scales, the learn table scales more, or how can I say that better? The learn table has more breakpoints in it than the others. So you have to scale it a little bit differently. I like to keep the same values that I have on my other table in here. So if it says to add or whatever in a specific value, I can match it and I don't have some weird breakpoint. So I have 500 in the other map, that's fine, or other X point. I don't have 600, I have 750. So what I'll do is I'll add 650 and then I'll leave 700 and then I'll put 750 like that. And then I have 850 on my other table, so I will add 850. I will add 900 and I will add 1,000, 1,250, 1,500, 1,750, 2,000. Let me think about this for a minute. Yeah, I think I can add a little bit more in there. 2,250, 2,500. Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, so I have a few extra breakpoints that I don't have in my other one, but the same points that I have on the other table still correlate. That's how I like to have it. You can set it up however you want, but it's best to set those up before you start making any kind of modifications because, again, it changes where these numbers are in relation to RPM, so it's best to set that up first. Wide open throttle RPM. I can set that one up, same as my first table. acceleration, TPS, position, degree. So that's the breakpoints for your acceleration versus correction, TPS. So you can set the breakpoints differently, but it's best to leave that alone. I don't think there's any reason to change that unless you need to fine tune like between a certain spot, but man, this computer sucks. All right. Target air fuel ratio. So every engine's different. Every engine will make power at a different air fuel ratio. Sometimes it's higher than you think. Sometimes it's lower than you think. Typically, you want it fatter under load, leaner when you're cruising, and sort of split the difference at idle. But again, everything's a little bit different. I'm just going to grab this whole top row and I'm going to put 12.7 because that's what this engine seems to like. And down here in my idle columns, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to grab, down here and I'm going to change this to 13.7 because that seems to be what it likes to idle at. And then my cruising range down here, coasting range, I'm going to put it at 14.3. And I'm going to start interpolating with the computer. You know what? I need to go sideways with it. That's fine. I'll fix it up. There we go. Come on. Alright, so somewhere in there. Now it's going to idle right about here. So I'm going to clean this up just a little bit, this whole area. Give it 1 point just to smooth it out. I don't like too much of a transition in between there if I can help it. Oops. I like to try to keep it as smooth as I can so it doesn't have to work too hard to overcome. An old big block Chevy's not too picky whether it's the 13.7 or 13.3. As long as the fuel's there, it's pretty happy. That could be a little smoother. Alright, that's good enough for that. The self-learn table is obviously 0. Wide open throttle and rich. I believe it comes. Yes, it comes with extra fuel up top. So there is a catalyst protection and rich percent. It adds fuel to protect the catalytic converter. I don't need it to do that. I don't have a catalytic converter. The wide open throttle and rich gain. You can set this to 100. You can add fuel there later if you'd like, if you need it. But I found that this extra fuel that it's dumping in randomly will screw with your initial settings here on your table. And I'm not going to mess with this a bit. I'm going to leave it alone and I'm going to start the thing up and it's just going to be the way it is. I will learn from here. I will screen record that as well. Where is fuel system pressure? You need to make sure that this matches what you actually run, what your pressure actually is. Mine is set to about 56. And I think we're pretty good. I'm going to leave those on. I'm going to set this to 2D. Come on. I'm going to leave those on. I'm going to hit the save. And I'm going to call it the killshot 454 baseline. I'll put a 1 after this. I know it's the first one. Alright, I will switch computers again, plug this in, and fire it up. Alright. Oh, I gotta switch hands, I can't do this left-handed. I'm gonna open the app. Man, I gotta be careful with this adapter. Trying to run my stupid microphone. Oh, I already had it open. Okay. I'm going to load the baseline that I just made. I'm going to key it on. I'm going to connect. And I'm going to hit right. So I should explain that this up here, this opens, saves, writes, or reads your files for everything. This down here is for this particular window and whichever one you may have open. So remember that. Okay, it says it was successful. I'm going to key it back off. I'm going to wait for that to time out, just so I know everything's offline. Okay, I'm going to key it back on. I'm going to hit connect. And I'm going to go to fuel. Now I'm going to go to configuration item and turn learning off, because I don't want it to learn right away, because I will be making the corrections, at least from the start. So I will hit disable. I will write it. Okay. Looks like I already got the stuff pulled up that I want for that. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have to start it and back it out of my garage, because I don't want it stinking it up in here. So I'm going to fire it up, I'm going to back it outside, and then I will start making some adjustments. And once I do that, once I get it outside, I will switch to screen record to make this a little easier. But cranked there for a minute and it didn't want to fire, so I just cracked the throttle open. I'm still holding my foot on the gas pedal a little. It's smoothed out, so I'm going to ease it back down to idle. My foot is off the gas pedal. I'm going to back this out before it stinks up my garage. Well, it's very unhappy right now, naturally. Okay, I will switch this to screen record. Stand by. Alright, I believe it's recording now. So what I'm going to do now is the loop is pulling a bunch of fuel out, which is okay. It's sitting here running. I need to let it get up to some temperature. So I'm going to let it run. I'm going to let it get some temperature in it before I start making any massive corrections. But you can see this value here, injection loop percent. 100 is perfect, meaning 100% of your stock fuel table, or whatever table you're on. Less than 100 means it's using less fuel, it's taking fuel away, and over 100 means it's adding fuel. So right now, it's taking fuel away. So I need to let it get up to temperature, because it could be in the startup enrichment still. So I'll let it get up to, 120, 30 degrees, something like that, and get out of that range. And then I'll start making some adjustments. But in the meantime, you can hit this little guy right here and get this little floating window up. If it looks different than this, you can right click and hit monitor, it may have something like this or sensor error or whatever, but this is a good one because you can leave this window open. You can look at your AFR and your injection loop percent at the same time. I'll shove it over here. Coolant temp 95, so it's still coming up. I can already tell you that it's a little on the fat side. Well, it's a lot on the fat side, but pretty rich. So I'm going to drop this down to 85%. And we're going to hit right ECU. You're going to see it change. It got lean, and then it's going to start putting the fuel back. Anytime you make a change anywhere, you need to let the loop stabilize. You can also you can go over here and turn the loop off in your configuration item and run it just straight on the table if you want to see exactly how it's going to run, but it's better for it's better for the engine to just let it run with the loop because the loop can correct a certain amount. So it's still taking quite a bit of fuel out. It's 106 degrees. It's pretty cold out, so it might take it a minute to come up the temperature. I'll just pause the screen recording and I'll let this come up to 140-ish if I can. I don't know, anything over 120 I'll be happy. So I'm just going to hit pause. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to sit right here and wait. Well, maybe. Pause, damn you. Oh, it's not going to let me pause. Oh, okay. Well, why would you want to pause? I guess we'll just sit here and wait together then, won't we? Um, It's a good time to be listening at your engine, make sure everything sounds good, make sure it's not making any crazy noise, the oil pressure's good, it's charging, you want to make sure you got good voltage. You want to make sure your battery voltage shown here matches what you actually have in the vehicle. And yeah, it's get some temperature in it now, 117. I don't remember where after start enrichment. Oh, I don't have anything past past 50. Okay, well, it's definitely not enriching anything right now. All right, well, I'm gonna pull a tiny bit more off this main offset, maybe a 2. See where that gets us at our idle. If you keep using this to correct your idle, you'll run out of fuel up top. So I like to try to just get it into the 80s if I can. And just sit and wait. The idle target speed is 819 and our RPM is slightly above it. The IAC is holding it open just a little right now. It's not far off. Not going to worry too much about the IAC or the idle speed as long as it's tolerable. Still pulling quite a bit of fuel. It's perfectly okay. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go back to my strip view and I'm going to watch the map, the RPM, I'm going to watch the loop percent, those 3 values. So I will get rid of that. I will get rid of that, 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 that. There, now you can see, let me highlight them, the target AFR, the actual AFR, and the loop percent. You see all three of them are right there together. So I'm just going to slightly bring it up off idle. I'm going to try to get it around 1200, 1250 RPM, and I'm just going to hold it there. And I'm going to do it very smoothly on the throttle. I'm just going to ease into it because the loop is going to have to correct in that area. And I'm going to hold it there until everything stabilizes to get an idea of where my fueling's at. So I'll speed it up slowly. A little too much. About there. And I'm going to watch it. And you can see it's stabilizing. It's slowly putting fuel back to match. So, I'm not going to move my foot on the gas pedal. I'm going to go back to the stock table. It's got this neat little track feature you can see right in here. And if I open up that floating window again, you'd see that it's pulling about 10% off right there. See? So what I'm going to do is go a little higher. We'll go to whatever the next point is in my table. Come on now. I'll go to 1500 and we'll see where it's at. And I'll hold it there. Try to be smooth with it. Anytime you move the throttle quickly, the loop turns off. So I'm trying to be smooth with it. This gas pedal's very touchy, so it's kind of hard to do. And that's as close as I can get it to 1500. You can see, same story. Pulling about 10%, maybe a little less now. For your initial startup, anything plus or minus 10 is perfectly fine to get you started. If it's like wildly off, you either have something configured wrong or, there's something wrong. You shouldn't be too far off. They're always usually a little rich, which is fine. And I'll speed it up to the next one, about 2000. See, it's still pulling about 10%. That's about all the higher I want to rev it, sitting here in my driveway and holding it there. Big blocks don't really, well, stock big blocks don't really like RPM. So, you can see this whole area this whole area right here we just covered, and it's about 10% high. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to pull 7. I'm just going to hit right. Now it's going to go lean. The loop is going to have to catch back up to it. Just make sure you're patient. Keep an eye on that. I don't know where I left off, but I pulled 7% out of here. I'm just letting it idle, letting it stabilize. And you can see it's still pulling 12, a little over 12% just in the idle. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to park it at 1250 RPMs again and see where we're at. And that gas pedal is touchy. There. Now you can see we're within 5%. Still on the rich side. I'm going to try to go up to 1500 again. Come on.
reasonably close. Pick up 2000. Pretty fat up there. So, I didn't take anything out of 2000, so I'll pull 5% out of 2000. And then I'm going to switch to the floating window again. I'm going to go back to the table. Come on. Or she's laggy. And I'm going to watch this loop percent. And all I'm going to do now, I guess I should write that. Every time you make a change, you should write it. I'm tracking it. You can see right where it's sitting right now, and you can see that it's pulling a whole bunch of fuel. So I'm going to grab this whole area. I'm going to pull 5 out of it real hard, just like that. We're going to see what it does. See it leaned out. That loop has to correct. Let's get closer. 2 more percent coming out of it. Getting reasonably close. 2 more. And yes, this is very choppy right now. You'll smooth that up later. We're just trying to get it to idle clean. Just off idle clean. That's just about it. The closer you can get that to 100, the happier it is, because the loop correcting is pretty slow to respond. So being that, like, let's say it's rich right now, well, let's say it gets lean up here, you have a lean spot. Well, it's pulling fuel, so when it hits that spot, it's still pulling fuel, so it has to correct all the way back to adding fuel. So it's going to have this rowdy dip in it that you don't want, and it's going to make it run bad. It, if this was locked at 100 the whole time, you'd be spot on the money. A couple percent up and down is, you know, tolerable, but the closer it is to 100, the better it is. So you can see we're getting reasonably close. It doesn't just read this value for this box, it's an estimation of all these values around it, so everything affects everything. So I'm just going to keep pulling out of this spot. I'm going to go 2 more percent down. I think I hit right. I hit it again, make sure. I'm going to grab this whole area now. I'm just going to pull some more out. See, I haven't moved my foot on the gas pedal. The stupid video keeps timing out, but just playing with little areas at a time, getting it as close as I can. It's actually a little lean there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to fill row values to bring that up a little more evenly. See where it goes. Not too bad. A little higher. Easy. Adding just a little right there. A little bit higher. A little rich. Kind of figured because we're stepping it up big time. Okay. That's fine. What I'm going to do now is this whole area, this whole shape I haven't touched is obviously rich. It's very rich. So if I went for a drive right now, when I'm just light throttle, low RPM driving, it'll probably be reasonably happy. But anytime you get into it at all, I mean it just even a little bit, just acceleration, it's probably going to go very rich. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this probably 10% up here. I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to fill row values, oops, column values, rather, something like that. Sorry, I was trying to make sure the stupid thing was still recording. I'm paranoid that it's junk now. Alright, now I'm going to grab this guy and I'm just going to grab anything under 2000. Now I will fill row. You can see what that did. That kind of smoothed this out a little. I'm going to write it. It wants a little bit more fuel up in there. As it warms up, I'll just grab the whole area I worked with. I'll just add one. I'll let that stabilize for a minute. Come on, gas pedal. You can do it. You can see it's adding here, not so much here. So, eh. Per shot at 1% is what I'm aiming for. Phone. Yeah, stand by. I'm just gonna let it idle. Alright. So it's still just a little lean down here in this general vicinity. So I'm just gonna grab this spot. Just gonna go up one, just like that. I'm gonna hit right. That's reasonably close. Looks like it's gonna be real close actually. Well, I need to go to the gas station and put fuel in this thing, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn back on the learn, and I'm going to drive it nice and easy and very smooth on and off the throttle. I'm not going to jab on it. I'm not going to rip on it. I'm just going to drive nice and gentle, like there's an egg between your foot and the gas pedal. And I'm going to try to get a couple ranges. I'll show you what I'm going to aim for here. You can see this ball, it tracks RPM versus map. Think of this like load. I mean, it isn't. This is not at all what this is, but think of it like load. So like if I whacked it right now, this ball would travel straight up and then over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to drive it to the gas station and I'm going to accelerate nice and gently and I'm going to try to fill out this column as it runs through the gears and then I'm going to try to fill out this column as it runs through the gears and then this column and then this column. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to aim for this spot on this little short drive. It's going to only be a few miles. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to look and see what it says and then I'll screen record that. So I can open this guy right here and keep an eyeball on the AFR while I'm driving. But pay attention to driving, not your damn computer. It's a little lean in the mid-range, be a little rich on top. So let's go back to the learn table and see what it has to say. I will hit read. Now you can see it's pulling fuel out of all those areas that we haven't touched. And everything over here, it's not too bad. Based on the fact that it was correcting in that where I showed you in that last window leading up to these spots, I probably took too much out up here. So I need to add a little bit more to the top end here and then pull some out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole row and I'm going to add two, yeah, maybe three. Three seems good. I'm going to pull that down to 60. I'm going to fill the columns. And then this whole area is a little on the rich side, anywhere in here. So what I'm going to do is it's always going to use a little less VE at maximum horsepower. It uses more at maximum torque and less maximum horsepower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to sort of scale this table to how I think it's going to want to be. Something like that. And we're going to take maximum horsepower area over and I'm going to fill row values. And that's going to taper it off, right? And then I'm going to grab all of this high value area. Oops, that was too much. Right about there. About there. Try to bring all these down under just under 80. Something like that. Then I'm going to grab this whole area. I'm trying to decide where I want to do it to. Probably about here. I'm going to fill columns. Well, maybe not quite down to 40. We'll fill columns to there. Did I do that right? You can hit Control Z and go back, as long as you didn't hit right. Yeah, I think we're going to go there. I'm going to fill those columns. And this guy here, we're going to go ahead and fill these columns as well. That's looking better. I imagine it's still going to be pretty fat in here. That's a little closer. I still got some fairly large steps. If you open up the graph view, you can see the, come on now, see the peaks and craters and the little bumps in it. Now I've got it better than it was, and I will hit right. And I will go to my learn table. And let's say like the idle is good and happy, like mine's not bad right now. So I'm not gonna add 0.24% right here. I'm just gonna leave that alone. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab all of this side of the table and get rid of it. Leave my idle alone because I'm fine with how that is right now. I'm just gonna hit right. That way it can learn from this point. And I'm gonna start driving it some more, and I'm gonna progressively get more and more into it. And I'll keep filling out the rest of my table the best I can. And yeah, just keep doing that. Repeat process. I like to show is idle and IAC position. Mine might be a tickle high right now. You get my pointer right here. I'd like to see that around 20. So what that means is I need to open the throttle blade just a little bit. If that's down at 5 or whatever, it's parked at 5, then your throttle's open too far. If it's reading really high, then your throttle's not open enough. So mine's only a little high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out and I'm going to just ever so slightly crack that throttle open just a little. And this is a 4-barrel, so I'm going to use the back blade so it doesn't affect my TPS. Although it looks like I might need to re-zero that. It's floating up a little. Anyway, I'm going to crack the throttle open just a tiny bit. That was about an eighth of a turn. Looks like I can go a little bit more. Um, that's not too bad. Usually I like to set it around 15. It's 13 right now. Yeah, it's not too bad. I might back that up just the slightest amount. I'm just barely touching that screw. You can see. That runs reasonably nice. Here's an updated learn table. You can see the mid-range is pretty good, but right up in the top it's still pulling some, right in the peak area. So I can fine-tune that area just a little bit, but pretty darn close. Alright, I'm just going to roll into full throttle. That's that low map value, high vacuum area. So when I went to tip back into the throttle to continue accelerating, it had a little burble. So them 2 bottom rows, I can raise those up another couple points, get that out of it.